Welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network, coming to you from the TeacherCast studios since 2011. Join us each week as we bring you the latest educational news, EdTech updates, and hottest interviews with today's most influential leaders in education. And now, for your host, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is the Jeff Bradbury Show, and if you're a blogger, a podcaster, a speaker, anybody who is a content creator, welcome to the Jeff Bradbury Show. This is episode number 19. Today is amazing because today we're going to be talking all about something I am extremely passionate about. That's right. Today we're going to be talking all about podcasting, and we're going to be asking the question, should you build your EDU brand through podcasting? Maybe you have a podcast and you're listening to this wondering what to do, where to go. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Maybe you don't have a podcast yet and you're saying to yourself, should I get into podcasting? These are all important questions. I want to start today with a few statistics. Did you know that there's more than 1 million podcasts out there right now on Apple Podcasts? That's right. If you go to Apple Podcasts, fire up that computer, you will actually be able to search for over 1 million podcasts. And I got to tell you, that number is growing extensively since everybody decided to duck and cover for COVID-19. But one of the interesting numbers is a large percent of those are no longer functioning. People created a show, had a great idea, and then pod faded. I don't want to see that happen to you. We're going to talk today all about why. I'm going to give you a little bit about my background, my stories, and obviously you guys know me by now. Podcasting has been something I've been doing now for 10 years. I got started podcasting really because, somebody asked me to, right? Same thing. Maybe you're in that position. Somebody asks you to be on a show and you sit there and go, this is kind of fun. How do you do it? What do you need? And the next thing you know, you're buying a house in Connecticut with a studio the size of a Volkswagen. There's a lot of different things in there. I was driving to New York. I was listening to a podcast all about Macs because at the time I was learning how to use my new Mac lab at school. And I found a show called Your Mac Show. And the guy was telling us how to push all the buttons, and it was great. He threw a quiz and said, if you answer this question correctly, I'll give you a $50 iTunes card. I didn't think anything of it because the episode was a couple weeks old. But I got to my destination in New York. I emailed the guy, said, hey, I love your show. Just learned about it, and here's the answer. And within a couple hours, Dennis calls me back and goes, hey, you got the right answer. That's pretty awesome. How do I send you the iTunes gift card? And I made $50 from podcasting before I even had a show. Pretty cool, right? And really the rest is history. I started TeacherCast podcast on July 11th, 2011. It's coming up next week. I can't believe it's the anniversary of TeacherCast already. We're going to talk about that next week. But, podcasting is something that's here. And podcasting is something that's going to stay. Should you be building your EDU brand on podcasting or with podcasting, right? And that's something that I've been struggling with. Here's the bottom line. It's only getting bigger every single year. If you have a phone in your pocket, doesn't matter what, you have a podcast player, something that connects to a device. By default, Apple has a podcast app on their devices. By default, I believe, correct me here, guys, Android has Google Podcasts on their devices, which means billions of people have the opportunity to listen to you and do so freely. It doesn't cost anything to make a podcast. Now, let's back up on that one, right? Because there are some great services out there that do things for free. I'll save that for another time. Today, we're really going to focus on 10 reasons why your brand should have a podcast. Now, guys, with that, I got to ask, should your podcast be associated with your brand? Should you do something different? Why? Why not? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Please leave us a comment below. Let us know on Twitter. What are your thoughts on this? Podcasting for your brand. Everybody's doing it. Are you? Let's kind of go down here as we head on into this whole podcasting phenomenon here. Why should you have a podcast for your brand? Well, number one, it helps you build your brand, right? You can make a website and it only goes so far. You can write a blog post and it only goes so far. You put out a podcast on Apple iTunes and there's 1 billion people that are looking for your topic or have the opportunity to stumble upon your topic. It's a no-brainer. It is an amazing opportunity for you to create simple content, put it out there, and have other people find you. It is, for me, that ultimate Build Your EDU brand. The second thing, it helps you to be able to share your messages on these platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. These are the world's biggest megaphones, and you have the ability to create content and put it out there for free. Now, we just recorded today an interview with Dr. Frank Buck. That's going to be coming out next week on how to build your brand, get this, through retirement. I know that sounds like a long ways away, but one of the things that we talked about on that episode is repurposing content. Now, you might be sitting here and going, I want to make a podcast, but I don't know what to do it on. But I've been blogging for the last 9 years. And my answer is repurpose your content. A lot of the stuff that I do on the podcast turns into blog posts. A lot of the blog posts turn into podcasts. It's repurposing, and that's totally an appropriate way to build your EDU brand. Number 3, it also helps you establish yourself as an expert. Why do you come to me and say, teach me how to build my brand? Why do you go to somebody else and say, you are a podcaster for Macs? Teach me how to become a Mac person. You know, when I first listened to your Mac show and I first met Dennis isn't an expert. He's just he is an amazing husband, amazing father, and he's a firefighter. And, you know, he's not a tech trainer. He's not working for Apple. He's just a guy that's passionate about teaching things, and he made a show, and it certainly had an effect on me. And because of that, you're listening to this podcast. And so it puts you in the opportunity of being known as an expert, building authority. And when you have authority, people will then turn to you for advice. People will turn to you for brand recognition. People will turn to you for extra opportunities. Come and speak at my conference. Come and join my ed camp, whatever it happens to be. Having that podcast does help establish you as an expert because people are listening to week after week after week of you talking about a subject. And you know what? You get pretty good at it after a while. For me, it was simple. I wanted to learn about a topic, call it flipped learning. So I brought on somebody who was going to talk about flipped learning. Next thing you know, I'm learning from him, and then I do a show on flipped learning alone, and now I get to be the expert. And everybody kind of works hand in hand with here. It really is the fourth thing here, which is creating that community for your brand, creating people who are going to be listening, knowing, liking, trusting what you do, and that starts to have brand loyalty. If you think of any of these educators out there that are in the know, or they authors a book, or they have a podcast or whatever, you know, people who wear the t-shirt of, you know, these are people who are leveraging their podcast, leveraging their brand, leveraging their blog to build a community. Community in this respect equals money. Your money is in your brand. Your money is in your mailing list. Your mailing list is building your community. Your community is supporting you. So, do we build a brand to charge our community? I hope not. Do we build a brand to grow a community, to then build a platform around that to bring in some income? Totally fine. Totally appropriate. Totally an okay way to use a podcast to grow a community, to build a network, to build some loyalty, and to build some community. Right? I don't know if I like the word loyalty or not, but you get the idea, right? People who are fans of or followers of your message. The fifth one's pretty simple. I've already mentioned it once. Everybody has a podcast player, right? Guys, it's not going away. It's only getting bigger, right? There's so many different podcasting platforms out there. The podcaster to be named nameless just signed a $100 million deal to exclusively post his content on somebody. Now, you talk about having a massive following, a loyal following. That's how these things get built. That's how you go out there and build your EDU brand. Everybody has that opportunity to check you out, not only in their pocket, but one of the things that I did here in the new house is every single room has a Google Home. That means every single room now has the opportunity to stream a podcast and to listen to a podcast. And I can now connect those home units and I can listen to one podcast in every single room when we're cleaning. It's pretty cool. But I am listening to podcasts every single place. It's not just in my car. It's not just on my iPhone. It's all over the place. Google just completely redesigned their podcasting platform. Last year, Apple came out with a native podcasting desktop app. And don't know if you heard the news, but last week when they had their WWDC, they mentioned specifically the podcasting app this year is going to get an overhaul. So look out for these great ways to find, subscribe, notify each other, and use the fact that everybody right now has a player to listen to your content. The sixth thing I want to share with you guys is it's cost effective. How do you make a podcast? Do you need a microphone? Do you need a stand? Do you need a computer? Really, let's be honest. The answer is no. You can use a free service, open up an application, talk into your phone, and it automatically will take your stuff, make an RSS feed out of it, and deliver it to the podcast players. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, for free. You don't need a microphone. You don't need any special apps. You just need a free account with this particular services, and they're willing to do it. Should you is another question. I'm not going to talk about that yet, but should you use those free services? We can get into all of that stuff later. Leave me a comment if you're on a free service and you want to discuss it. Everybody has a different opinion on that. I'd love to hear yours to it. If you do want to get a microphone, my budget for you, less than $100, right? You can get a snowball mic for $80. You can get a Yeti microphone for around $100, $110. You can use the microphone. You can get a lav mic, something that pins onto your shirt for $20, $30. Right? You don't need anything too big, right? Under $100, you can get a microphone. If you want to take it a step further, you can get what a friend of mine recently called the little crane, or what we call a boom arm, right? It hooks to your desk, comes up, and it puts the microphone in front of your mouth, right? That usually runs you $60, $120, somewhere in the middle, depending on it. The boom arm I use is called a Heil, Heil, PL2T. It's about $100. It's one of the more popular ones out there on the market. And as far as microphones are concerned, I've had a lot of them. The microphone you're hearing me on right now is a professional grade, but I've used Yetis, I've used snowball microphones, I've used lapel mics, I've used a whole bunch of different stuff throughout the years. And really, it's just a matter of how am I going to get my message into the device to edit it out. So now we are at number 7, podcasts driving traffic to your social media. Who wouldn't want that, right? And there's a lot of great ways to do that. And really, that's where we start to bring in the conversation of audio hosting, right? Is podcasting free? Yes. But if you're really going to do it the right way, you need to partner with an audio host. Mine happens to be a great company called Captivate. You can find out more information about captivate.fm. And if you're interested, I can send you off my affiliate link for that. But there's other great ones out there. Libsyn, I've been a customer of. Blueberry is a good friend of ours here. They do some great things. And there's others out there if you're interested. But those companies are going to give you an audio player that then you can put on your blog, or you can share out on social media, and you can start to use your podcast to grow. I love Captivate because it gives me an audio player that I can actually put onto my social media channels. So you don't see this a lot where you're running down Twitter and there's a play button, and that play button is your audio podcast. So I love the fact that Captivate gives me the opportunity for that. Of course, you can find out more information over at captivate.fm. And if you're interested in doing it, like I said, I do have a little affiliate link. 3 more. But before I get to those 3 more, I'd like to know who you are. I'd love to know who my listeners are. If you're listening to this and you're following me on Twitter at TeacherCast or at Jeff Bradbury, send me a tweet. I'd love to know that you're listening to this. I'd love to know what you think about this show. Share with me your thoughts or rebuttals on any of these things. Let's talk on Twitter. I would love to have you guys subscribe, check us out, and let us know that you're subscribers. We do these shows every single week, and I would love to know that you guys are out there. Because that is what takes us to our 8th thing, our 8th reason for using podcasts to build our EDU brand. And that's simple. Podcasts are fun. I love getting into roundtables where you've got many, many people involved and you got different ideas flying back and forth, and you get a chance to duke it out a little bit and figure out how to help somebody else out through recording. Just as much as I love sitting here and having a one-to-one conversation with you about how I can help you out. I've been doing this for a long time. I love it. I don't know how many episodes I've done, more than 1,500 by the time you add up all the shows and the specials and all the extra projects and the ISTE stuff and all that stuff. I know the numbers are up there. Honestly, I don't even know how many, but I know it's up there because I can count all the files. It is a fun thing to do. You get a chance to meet so many people. You ask somebody to guest blog on your website, maybe. You ask somebody to come on your podcast, oh yeah, we're going to have some fun with that, right? Now, the best thing about putting this together is when you create something that, works in multiple avenues. What do I mean by that? We do our show on Mondays called Ask the Tech Coach, and it's Sue and I having fun. Sometimes we bring on a guest, we do a roundtable, whatever. You can check that out over on askthetechcoach.com. What we've been doing recently, since I opened up the new TeacherCast studio here, is we've been recording that show on Thursday mornings at 10 o'clock Eastern. And if the weather's right, if the kids are behaving, we go live with that. We call it Tech Coach Live, and we go out onto Facebook and Periscope, and you name it, we go out on it. And then at the end, we strip the audio out of the video, and on Monday mornings, I give you the audio version. And so we're creating one piece of content that goes in multiple directions, kind of like we talked about earlier with that whole repurposing concept. If you follow these 9 things, you then get to number 10. And number 10 essentially is creating evergreen content. Content that lives no matter where, because even though you're recording it today on July 1st of 2020, somebody might listen to this episode in December of 2021. You never know. The better off you can make your content evergreen, the more people are going to want to come back to it. How many times have you found a podcast and the first thing that you want to do is you want to dive back into their archives and see things? So I always like to do my podcast as evergreen, okay? Making sure that down the road, people can listen to it. Now, I know some of this stuff is dated, right? But I try not to say things like, hey, how was Thanksgiving? Because nobody cares about that 6 months down the road, a year down the road. So I try to create everything that's evergreen. I try to create great content every time. And that's why I've decided to build my EDU brand on podcasts. So talk to me. Do you have a podcast? Are you interested in creating podcasts? Do you want to make a podcast in your classroom? We've got some great things going on over the TeacherCast Educational Network. One of the things that I'm looking forward to resurrecting is our very podcast called Educational Podcasting Today. I started it a while ago, kind of put it aside, definitely put it aside when COVID hit, and I'd love to resurrect it. If you're a podcaster and you want to come on this show, please let me know. I'd love to have you on. The whole show is about just really nerding out with podcasting information. What kind of microphone? What kind of mixer? How do you do it? You can find out all the information about all of our podcasting resources over at educationalpodcasting.com. We even have a great Facebook group dedicated to podcasting, broadcasting, all things audio and video. And if you're looking for great ways to do this with your kids or your students, we have podcastingwithstudents.com, and you can find out lesson plans and equipment for classrooms and all of that great stuff over there on podcastingwithstudents.com. I'll make sure that we put all the show notes and stuff together, all the links. This is the Jeff Bradbury Show, episode number 19, talking all about 10 ways to build your EDU brand through audio and video podcasts. Hope you found this episode great. Don't forget, we've got some great things over on the Jeff Bradbury Show each and every week. Every single Wednesday, we are here for you with bonus shows quite often on Fridays, and we would love to have you guys as a guest. If you've got a question about anything on your brand, please let us know. We would love to help you guys build your EDU brand. And that wraps up episode number 19 of the Jeff Bradbury Show. On behalf of everybody here on the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to the TeacherCast Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter @TeacherCast or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.